Welcome to the Cyber Guy Podcast, your source for engaging cyber education, cyber discussions, and a look at current cyber news and trends with retired FBI Special Agent Darren Mott.
Hello, friends. Welcome to a new episode of the Cyber Guy Podcast. I'm your host, retired FBI Supervisory Special Agent Darren Mott. And I want to thank you so much, if you are listening to this podcast, for putting up with my tardiness in doing the podcast lately. As you may or may not know, I have been doing, by the way, this is episode 114 of the Cyber Guy Podcast. But since September, I've been doing, or was it October? I forget when I started. I think it was September. I've been doing a daily podcast called the Cyber Smart Morning News Update. And so that has kind of honestly taken up a lot of my time, as it was in September I started. But so I've been doing that every day. And because of that, and the prep for that and work and other stuff I'm trying to do, I've kind of let the Cyber Guy Podcast kind of sit on the sideline a little bit. So I apologize for that. I still have interviews from the Cyber Summit that was here in Huntsville a couple months back in October. So I'm going to do one of those today with Matthew Miller of a company called Paradign Cyber Ventures. And I'll talk about what that is in just a bit, but I just want to kind of update you on some stuff that's going on, things we're doing here, what we're doing with the podcast, what's going on with the other podcast, just to kind of touch base, since it's been about a month since I put out a new one of these podcasts. So here we are. As always, I do appreciate those who download and continue to listen and subscribe and do all that fine stuff. Nothing really much has changed on that other than timing and planning and stuff on my part. So again, one more time, I'm going to apologize for my tardiness in putting this out, but here we are today. So it's been a busy couple months. In addition to doing the daily podcast, I've been on Newsmax a couple of times, like every other week, talking something cyber wise on a variety of their news programs. And so I appreciate them giving me that opportunity. I was back on Fox 5 DC recently, and they actually posted this particular clip. I was going to play for you just to kind of show you some stuff I'm doing in addition to like my full-time job and all that kind of crap. So this was a thing about new iPhone feature. It had to do with the whole Apple sharing. I forget what they call it. Where you tap your iPhones together to get your contact information. So they called me and wanted to talk about concerns about that. So this is me on Fox 5 DC recently.
From law enforcement to parents, especially about a new feature on iPhones. It may actually create some privacy issues for some children. There's a little back and forth as to what exactly this does. So you know what AirDrop is, right? Right. So there's this thing called Name Drop now, which allows users to share their contact information as well as pictures and other things on the phone. All you got to do is put the two iPhones together. Right. So people have questions about, is that really all that happens? Is there a mechanism where I can make it stop? Do I have to approve it, etc.? So we're talking to retired FBI agent podcast host Darren Mott, joining us now to tell us exactly what parents should worry about and what they can do. I mean, this was a pretty strong warning from law enforcement, although people in the tech world are saying, wait a second, it's not as dire as it may sound.
Right. I think the first problem was it seems like this particular issue came about because of a viral TikTok video. So that's the first problem to all of this. And at the end of the day, it's really not a big risk, this name drop feature that iOS 17 now has, because in order for it to work, the two iPhones have to come within a couple inches of each other. And then you must yourself accept or send your contact information. It's a contact information sharing feature, kind of like changing business cards, right? And if you're a business person and you don't want to hold business cards, this makes it very efficient for you to transfer your information to other people, but you have to actively allow it to occur. The fact that, or the risk, they seem to be saying that if you just walk by somebody and they'll pick up your information, it can't work that way. It doesn't work that way. There has to be an interaction. So the risk is really low. Not to say that some bad guy won't figure out a way around it. Right. That could come, but that doesn't exist right now.
Yeah, and remember AirDrop, right? Before Apple made some changes to it, people were sitting on airplanes and public transportation and receiving explicit pictures and things that they never asked for, because people could AirDrop them to other phones that weren't just your contacts. And then that was a glitch, and that eventually got fixed that. But of course now, but to Darren's point, you've got to accept it first.
Okay. But let's say I'm a parent and I have, teen kids. Is there anything, just so we're clear, is there anything about this that I need to be concerned about other than what they've raised, the questions they've raised already, in your opinion?
No. No, in my opinion, there's no risk to anyone just pulling information off of your phone with name drop. Certainly, there's other issues like location services and things like that. That information is leaked out specifically through apps like TikTok. I mean, if you're worried about name drop, you need to go worry about TikTok first before you're worried about name drop.
That's what I wanted to get to.
Well, before we go, I mean, you dropped that on us. Let's talk about that because I think a lot of people think that TikTok's just another social media platform. It's innocuous. We've heard about all the data being sold to China, who owns it, ByteDance, etc. But let's talk about that location because there is metadata with our pictures, with our videos. It can precisely locate where our child is in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, it absolutely does that, and you should go in for your kids' phones and turn off location services. They really don't need. I mean, if they're trying to, buy an Uber Eats or something, they may need it for that kind of thing. But you can turn it on and off. But from a parental perspective, your kids probably aren't looking that deeply into their phone for location services. So as a parent, I would turn that off just as a safety mechanism, and I'd get rid of TikTok.
Okay.
I'm about to go take care of that. We going to commercial? I'm going to go take these phones. I need to do that.
Darren Ma, we appreciate your expertise here on the DMV Zone. Concise and to the point, and definitely something that every parent should look into.
Yeah, I'm scared. I'm spooked. He got me spooked now about my kids.
I mean, social media is definitely a double-edged sword. We know that. But anyways, there's still some work there. But
so there you go. So I appreciate the DMZ Zone. The two hosts there are Marina Morocco and Joe Claire. I've been on their show a couple times. They're fun. It's an interesting show. It's like an afternoon news show more than anything else. And so it has that music underneath. I think it's on one of their alternative channels. I don't think it's on like Fox 5. Well, it's one of their digital channels, but whatever. They've had me on a couple times. I'll be back on Fox 5, I believe, this Friday, the 15th, doing a thing in the morning with their morning show. I actually have to come up with a topic for them, but I appreciate them getting me back on. So some of the stuff I do there, and I do it on Newsmax. I don't have the Newsmax clips because they're a little harder to get to. They don't really post them on their site. I have to actually have them send me the link. And I'll be honest with you, Newsmax is pretty quick. It's a pretty quick turnaround. It's like a minute. It's a minute pop each time. I appreciate Fox 5 DC for giving me a little time to kind of expand on the TikTok stuff. They weren't expecting the TikTok app part of it, so I'm always glad when I can get on there and bash TikTok where I can. So let's talk about my interview for this episode. It's with Matthew Miller. He is the, I believe, owner or CEO, created anyway, Paradign CyBUr Ventures. And just from their website, Paradigm CyBUr Ventures partners with forward-thinking high schools to implement a proven series of cybersecurity courses that achieve unprecedented success. We have the necessary experience and professional network to implement Paradigm CyBUr programs in schools across the country. We have demonstrated that a school district can go from 0 to 200 cyber students and a cohort of work-ready professionals in less than 3 years. Students leave the program having earned highly coveted industry certification and demonstrated application of the soft skills that our national corporate partners have identified as critical for success. Many graduates receive full-time job offers right out of high school from top companies. So Matthew was at the National Cyber Summit in Huntsville and was nice enough to sit down and talk to me about this. And this was very interesting to me because as a former teacher and obviously now as a cybersecurity expert, self-proclaimed, honestly, this is a great program they've put together because honestly, with the cybersecurity skills gap that we have with hundreds of thousands, if not millions of jobs being vacant across the cybersecurity spectrum, the ability for kids to come right out of high school and go into jobs is fantastic. They don't have to go spend 4 years at a college. They could get a college degree while they're working and not come out of college with debt and stuff and crazy political opinions, but that's a topic for another episode. But I really like what they're doing. I actually want to have him on for a more detailed conversation. Actually doing this podcast right now reminds me to contact him and do a more lengthy interview with him. So this is going to be about a 10 or 15 minute interview that we did real quickly at the Cyber Summit, but I really enjoyed talking with Matthew. And I love what their program is doing. And if you know someone or you are a school district or a teacher, this might be something that your school should look into because they have the methodology to do this. And it's a fantastic program for kids, especially technically oriented kids who they just love working with computers. And this is what they want to do. So give a listen to Matt Miller. And if you have thoughts, comments, or anything else about him, let me know. But we'll talk again afterwards. But here we go. My interview with Matthew Miller. So I'm joined now by Matthew Miller, the owner. I didn't ask your title, but with Paradigm CyBUr Ventures. So you are the
co-CEO of Paradigm CyBUr Ventures.
All right, we got talking, and Matt's a former superintendent of schools. I'm a former teacher at FBI, so they were like, "Hey, let's have a discussion." So, Matt, tell me about Paradigm CyBUr Ventures.
Thanks, Darren. So, and we really appreciate the opportunity. So, we are very, very different and unique former educator in the Ohio area. My partner and I at Paradign Cyber Ventures, we started a cyber curriculum / teacher training program about 5 years ago. Pretty successful. 2 of the teachers are reigning cyber.org Teachers of the Year, and so we're very proud of that fact. But it really came about because of a casual conversation I had with somebody in the area, one of our business leaders, who said, you should be teaching cybersecurity in high school. And so my first thought of being an educator was, oh, okay, so we're going to tell them how to be good digital citizens, don't do bad things online, things like that. He's like, no. He says, I own a cybersecurity company and we don't have enough employees and the market is just going to get bigger and bigger. So took that information, had a couple quick conversations, breakfast meetings, what have you, and so we built out a full curriculum for Cyber 1, Cyber 2, Cyber 3, so essentially sophomore, junior, senior program. When our kids are finished as 18-year-old graduates, they had the opportunity to get CompTIA Security Plus certification as juniors and seniors, and we've had tremendous results. Our kids are essentially falling into 3 buckets. Some of them are getting hired right out of high school with Security Plus certification, making $75,000, $80,000. I don't need to tell your audience that. Some are going right into colleges in the cyber field, some at Purdue, some other places. And then our third bucket of kids are kids that are doing both. Businesses want them, kids still want to go to college, and so these companies are paying for them to go. And so we have about 1,000 kids now nationwide in the program, and looking to add more.
So how do they get into it? Is this associated with the schools, or is it something they do independently?
So this is associated with the schools. So we built the curriculum out. We do all the teacher training. We work with the schools to get teacher certification as well, depending on whatever state it comes into. And so it's an elective course, and it's been really, really successful. And we're just here to talk more about it and get these kids out. We've literally, Darren, had families stop us and say, you're changing the trajectory of our child's life. And when you hear something like that, and you know, with the market now, you look at the cyber heat seek map, and there's 660 something thousand open jobs, and no one's going to be able to fill that pretty quick. So we're trying to do our best to get that done.
And that's great, because I'm sure being a former teacher, I'm sure if I was still in teaching, I probably would be very frustrated with the way the schools are going. But having a parent being able to say, you're changing the trajectory of our kid's life, it's got to be like, hey, I'm doing the right thing. Thank God.
And that was very reaffirming for us, and it was one of the things that my partner Keith Coney and I have said, that when you hear that from families, how do you not want to do more of that?
Right. So this morning I had 2 kids sitting here. One, he wanted to be in cybersecurity. I'm not sure if they stopped at your booth yet, but so his name was Andrew.
Do you remember what school he was from?
James Clemens.
Yes.
Yeah. So he was like, how do I get into cybersecurity? And I'm like, well, I said, get as many. You can start getting certifications now. You can start studying and get those Net Plus or Security Plus certification, because that will push you further down the road. So you already have a program designed to do that, which is great. Because I agree. I even told him, you don't have to go to college.
Right.
Now, you certainly can.
Right.
And a lot of. And here's where the problem is, because I do a lot of hiring for the company I work with, and let me rephrase that. So the company does hiring, and trying to convince my boss is this guy doesn't have a 4-year degree, but he has what we need to do is it's hard to get past there's some reluctance there from old school hiring people, like, oh, no 4-year degree, I guess, right. We can have that. And you don't even need a 2-year degree, right?
I have a great story for that, if I can.
Yeah, so, please.
Some of our kids that have come through the program, we partner our school districts up with businesses for mentorships and internships. That's part of the program. So as 17 and 18-year-olds, they get to do that. So one of our partners is U.S. Bank. I'll drop them. They're one of our companies that work with our kids. And so we took some of our students down to their SOC, and sitting around the table, and one of the VPs comes in and thinks it's going to be just like a sort of a pep talk to a bunch of high school kids, no big deal, blah, blah, blah. So he's sitting around, and all of a sudden the kids are asking him questions, and they're dropping all the acronyms and all the important things about cyber, and this guy's face just kind of goes pale, gets on his phone, texts other people, and they come into the room, and he's like, all right, kids, say the same things you just said. So they're talking about things that are very high level that they're not used to hearing from high school kids. So U.S. Bank, as an example, had a policy that they're not going to hire anybody in the cyber that doesn't have a degree. On the spot, HR got a visit from the VP at U.S. Bank and said, okay, these kids are way far ahead than the college kids that we have now in the program. We need to change our policy. So if you go to U.S. Bank now, they change their policy based on the kids that we had in our program. I can't say any better than that. Again, we're not Paradign Cyber Ventures. We're not a vendor, so to speak. We are educators who are just trying to fill a need.
So how does it work? If a school wants to do your program, how do they? How do you integrate that with the schools?
That's a great question. So what we do is usually we usually talk to either an ed leader or a superintendent, sometimes a teacher or a principal that has an interest in this, and we talk about the program. So again, it's a full 3-year program with curriculum, with teacher certification, but honestly, we do a needs assessment. So we have a needs assessment that we go through with the district. Do they have the right leadership? Do they have the right vision? We just don't want anybody to do it if they're not going to put what's needed behind it for the success of the kids. So our needs assessment tells us a lot. There's no special technology that's needed. We use the cyber ranges that are available to kids nationwide and specifically in certain states as well. But really, we just work hand in hand with the district to say, where are you at now? What have you done in cyber? And then we either give them a full package or we work with them to tailor it for the needs of their kids.
So the school doesn't do the classes. They do the classes.
They do the classes.
Oh, okay.
We train their teacher up. Usually there might be somebody that might have a computer science background or a math background. They don't have to. As you know, Darren, if a teacher's cyber certified, they're not going to be teaching very long. They're going to be doing something else.
Right.
So some of our biggest successes have come from what I would say are non-traditional backgrounds. So one of the cyber.org teachers of the year, Ben Doherty, he came out of the math world in high school, which kind of makes a lot of sense, and he had a passion for technology. But one of our greatest stories is a young lady named Mariah Walker, who's a teacher, and she's the reigning cyber.org teacher of the year, and she was a middle school English teacher who had a passion for technology. But what you really need, what Ben and Mariah have, but also the other teachers that we're working with in states across the country, is you have to be a kid magnet. If you're a kid magnet, we can train you up in the cyber side of things, but we need somebody that kids are going to want to flock to and want to learn from. And so that's probably been the most rewarding piece of this, is finding those people that have a passion for cyber that can translate that with kids.
Have you found any states that are going to a more cyber-focused overall holistic curriculum? Like for here, if you run down the road from here, or up the road, I guess, there is a cyber school. It's a magnet school, Alabama. Yeah, you know. So I've seen more states trying to embrace that and come up with that kind of centralized, everything we're going to talk about here is cyber technology oriented with some of the basics thrown in, but you're just going to focus more on that.
We haven't seen it where it's been wholesale like it is just up the road here. We are working with Talladega schools in Alabama, but we haven't seen states say it's going to be all cyber with other things sprinkled in, but we've started to see some states put a focus. South Dakota just did this. They'll put a focus on cyber in a program similar to ours. The states that we're working with now, we're open to any. Predominantly are New York, New Jersey, California, Florida, Texas, Alabama, of course, too. But and we're picking up some more. And there's some interest too in the DMV, DC area.
Do the states have to do something to specially incorporate it into their state curriculum?
Yeah, that's a great story too. So this is so brand new for school districts, and the only thing that moves slower than K-12 school districts are higher education, colleges and universities. And so we have not had any deal breakers in terms of getting teachers certified. You have to be a little bit creative. Sometimes you can code it as math. Sometimes you can code it as computer science. But ironically, and I think this is a good story to tell too, sometimes in the public education sector, and you know this being a teacher, you can't get legislation to move very quick. You can't get changes at the Department of Education really quick. But what you can do is when you're starting a cybersecurity program and you talk about what it means for the state and the community and the businesses, and you have one of your businesses, call the state legislator and say, look, this is going to be a really good program and I need the talent and I need the kids. Can you make this happen? It usually happens overnight. It's kind of ironic how those business leaders can kind of shake things up and make things happen quick. We've had no roadblocks.
So what's the future of your business look like?
We know that we are going to be really, really busy, and I think that's part of the reason why we're here, so we can talk to more places that need the talent, that want to get the talent, and that want to partner with us.
So you find that you can't find the talent either for what you're doing?
We can find the talent. It's just we're just ramping up really, really fast. That's the problem, and that's a good problem to have.
Cool. So how do people find out more about you?
I guess the easiest way would just go to ParadigmCyberVentures.com, and there's a contact information there. On the socials, we're at Paradigm Cyber at Paradigm_Cyber. But really, just reach out to the website, ParadigmCyberVentures.com.
You're not on TikTok, are you?
No.
Okay, good. Okay.
Never.
That'd have been a deal breaker for me.
That's one of the things that I say to kids and to districts when we're in there, get rid of your TikTok account.
Yes.
Probably too late for some of them, but yeah, we don't do that.
Yeah, the one kid that was sitting here, he was the one who wanted to be in cybersecurity. He had it. The one who didn't want to be in cybersecurity didn't.
And
I told him, you need to get rid of it tomorrow.
Exactly. It might be too late, but yeah, you need to get rid of it tomorrow.
All right, Matt, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Darren, thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks. So once again, I want to thank Matt Miller for coming on and talking to me at the National Cyber Summit in Huntsville. It was a really good conversation. I hope to have a longer conversation with him down the road. One thing I'm looking to do over the next couple of weeks with this podcast, Cyber Guy Podcast, is to put more of these out. I still have a couple more interviews. I'm working on getting some longer form interviews with some recently retired FBI friends. Talk to them about what they're doing, what they did in the Bureau, stuff like that. As always, I'm always open to suggestions, thoughts, and comments on the podcast. You can hit me up, Darren at thecyberguy.com. Cyber spelled CYBUR. The better place to find me is at my LinkedIn profile, linkedin.com/IN/Darren Mott. I tend to put content up on there every day. Had a conversation with a scammer on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago and posted that. It's always entertaining to read those kind of things. And they still are hitting me up every day. If you're on LinkedIn, you get these messages from these people, and they're always women who want to become friends because I'm very knowledgeable for some reason. I'm an expert in my field, according to them. And it's always bogus pictures, it's always bogus profiles, it's always humorous. And I try to play along with them for a while to out them. But there's one up there that I posted a little while ago that is particularly humorous. So just look for Discussion with a Scammer Part 2. So you can look for that on my LinkedIn stuff. I also have a Substack that I just started about 2 months ago. So I'm trying to write at least once a week on there some topic of interest to me that I can expand on that I don't have time to talk about on the daily podcast or even on this podcast. And so it kind of goes into more depth there. It's more for discussion making, to have conversations with folks about different topics and provide my opinion on things. And so it's at cyberguy.substack.com, cyber spelled CYBUR. You can find it there. You can find me on Instagram, but Instagram sucks. I don't do much on there, so probably not worthwhile if you're not an Instagram person. I am on Facebook. I do have a profile on X, which is the Cyber Guy on X. So you can kind of find that there if you want some content from there, but it's usually content you can find on LinkedIn. So if you're doing it on LinkedIn, you don't really necessarily need to go anywhere else. So that's enough self-promotion for this one podcast. With that, I want to thank you for taking the time to download, to continue to listen, to continue to support the podcast. Obviously, I'm not trying to sell anybody anything. I'm doing this as a passion project, and hopefully you are continuing to enjoy it. Hope you enjoyed the rest of your week. Know that knowledge is protection. If we can understand the threats targeting us, we can assess our risks. Proceed wisely. As always, reach out if you have thoughts, comments, questions. Happy to talk to anybody. Thanks again. Enjoy the remainder of your week. Stay cyber safe.